Welcome, everyone. I'm Teresa Rances, the director of the ACC Philippines. We're very excited to have you here with us today in dialogue with our ACC alumni, Leeroy New, Aya Torrado, and JK Anicoche. At a time when travel is not possible, this series creates opportunities for international dialogue and understanding through conversations by creative minds from around the world. Allow me to call on JK, our moderator for today's series. JK?
Hey, hello. Mabuhay, good friends. Kumusta? Hello to everybody. I'm Jake Anicoche. I'm a performance maker and ACC alumni from Manila. Today, we are joined in by our good friends from the ACC alumni, visual artists, performance artist Leeroy New, and dance artist Aya Torrado. So we would like to acknowledge everyone who are joining us tonight or this morning at the United States, right? Coming from different parts of the world. Thank you for joining our conversation, for joining our dialogue today. And we would like to ask everyone to make use of the chat box so that we can ask questions, we can interact with each other as we have a good, long conversation tonight. Okay, so after our in dialogue with Leeroy and Aya, we will go to another space, a spatial chat. So we will invite you to an after talk party in digital virtual space. Okay, so join us, good friends, and if you have questions, you may use our chat box. And let's go, let's begin. Let's call in our friends. Leeroy New, hello Leeroy, and hello Aya, are you there? Let's go.
Hi.
There's the
Hello.
Philippines. Hello. Mabuhay, as we say.
Mabuhay.
Mabuhay.
Welcome to our Wi-Fi.
Here, it's because there's a thunderstorm, and this is one of the challenges of the times where we are using third world Wi-Fi, no? But nonetheless, we will, good conversation points for tonight. Okay, let's keep the ball rolling. Leeroy and Aya, thank you for being with us tonight. So I will be your moderator, but I will also be responding. Okay, so we trust you guys do search about the wonderful works by our colleagues and friends over here so that you can get a better grasp of their context. But okay, sige, sure, let's begin. So there's a pandemic. There's we are on our 201st lockdown day. This is I think the Philippines has the longest lockdown in the whole world, no? So we're here for 201 days now. And it's 100 days before the end of 2020. And we are, as a performance maker, as an artist, I never use the word precarity, but I think really now we are in very precarious times. Before, at the beginning of the year, a lot of artists were already talking about the climate emergency, the climate crisis. And then much later, 2 months later, around March, we are faced with the pandemic. And so because of the pandemic, it just unraveled before our eyes, right? That we are not just facing this climate crisis, we are also facing cultural crisis, and we are facing a lot of crisis that brought about by the political landscape that we're facing in various nations, especially in the Philippines. So let's talk about arts in crisis. So Leeroy and Aya, kumusta kayo? How are you? Especially now, our works, no, we are the most, I think the art sector is the most vulnerable sectors. We are still not allowed to gather and come together and create like alternative ways of creating online and on the ground. So, sige, Leeroy, how are you? That's our first question for tonight. How are you doing in the time of this pandemic?
Doing our best, maximize the limited mobility and resources that we can come by. And I guess in our own social context, we can be very good at maximizing what we have, and so in a way we have like some kind of training for situations like this. We've had some sort of training, especially in the creative industry, where we tend to fend uh, for ourselves. You know, we tend to like come up with our own systems for working, our own ways to present our work. So
Mhm.
I'm just applying that training now.
So in a way, working independently and with very limited resources and grants and support, our practice of kind of prepared us for this. No, Leroy, you're one of those artists who've done a lot of transmedia work in the past. Or 10 years ago, I remember you are exploring already Facebook and Instagram as platform for exhibitions. And now everyone is online,
Mm-hmm.
and and even your activism and even your advocacy work has also not really migrated, but I think it's just expanded online. No, and let's talk more about that in a little while. So let's hear from Aya. Aya, kumusta ka? How are you?
Hello. Hello, JK, Leroy. Hi, everyone. I am good. I'm doing good. I have moved here in La Union, which is 5 or 6 hours away from Manila. Since the pandemic, I resonate so much with the pandemic being a portal. Um, it's been tough, especially in the first few months, especially because I handle dancers within the company. So it was huge to be faced with, okay, where are we going to get money for the dancers, as we are project based, and also being in the Philippines, wherein we don't have that much grants or institutional support. We've mostly really survived on our own. But same as Lee, I think, on a very deep level, we were trained, to survive. But in a way, going back to what I said, it was a portal for me to be even more present, be even more, um, I guess, just be more gratitude and be even more spiritually expressed. And these are themes that I've been exploring in my works, even pre-pandemic. And so, yeah, I'm good. I'm around nature. I'm taking it day by day. I've been meeting a lot of local artists also here who are not, um, maybe they aren't, based in Imperial Manila, or also, supported by grant giving bodies, or even like popular in their own right, or have been like presented in galleries. There's a lot of opportunity for me to see other ways of living, and also, yeah, my creative practice now being very interwoven with a living practice, which is just really living and being in conversation with other people, and dancing with other people, both online and also here in the local community here. So, ayun, yun. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Good point that you brought here. No, I think the pandemic has, in a way, forced us to listen harder and connect deeper. Now that our usual bag of tricks are not readily available, or it's not something that we can easily use. I work mostly with communities, and I say that my capacity skill set is in gathering people. Um, in creating like collective action, propelling collective imagination. But with the pandemic, it's the biggest challenge is to gather, for us to do something together. Of course, there's a thing of like liveness and sharing space and being present in a shared space together, and we are translating that to new ways that we are discovering as we are going migrating online. But what do you think about this thought that uh, I always think of art practice as disaster management every time that there's always a hazard and a vulnerability, and the only way to hack it and cut through it is by building capacities among people. So in times of disaster, it's very important that we have an imagination of recovery, but we do not know when this will happen, when we will recover, and at the same time we are facing some social ills, that were made apparent because of the conditions that were brought out by the pandemic. So Leroy, there's you are working a lot with different collectives, and you have initiatives wherein you are responding to the crisis that is brought caused by this pandemic. Tell us about that. You were creating these masks as objects for protest, and you're doing like these toolkits online.
I tend to respond quite organically with the means that I have, and part of our training has always been to put into perspective and contextualize our position in relation to the bigger social context. And I've always come to the conclusion that I have some means to be able to produce. I've conditioned my immediate environment and my immediate networks in such a way that I am able to be mobile, to be able to help out as much as I can. At the start of the pandemic, I had a lot of surplus materials, and there was a desperate need for PPEs. This was, I think, the general, the national heads were caught unaware, definitely, or they choose to be caught unaware. So it fell on the independent practitioners. I design studios and fashion designers pitched in, converting their mini workshops to produce PPE suits. I myself converted my studio to produce improvised face shields, and like I said, it's quite organic for me to kind of expand on what I'm doing, on what I have. We're making face shields now, and I've always I've applied my sculptural training to accommodating the human body for quite a long time already, and so it was quite natural for me to expound on this language, this new language of crafting, of making things that are practical and has some use, and while infusing some kind of statement in them. So I ended up coming up with an entire series of statement face shields. People were sending me, even before the pandemic, of images of protesters wearing improvised face shields in Palestine, in Venezuela, and in Hong Kong. And these face shields were pretty much what they evoke the kind of resourcefulness that I would experience here in urban Manila. Like urban poor Filipinos basically don't throw things away. In fact, they manage to convert this discards into livelihood by, for example, converting plastic bottles into Christmas decor, or like that, for example. So
That's wonderful. It's also partly pulling the capacities of people, and art, especially gathering them to create these wonderful initiatives. I think that's also the response of a lot of us, especially us who have been organizing different communities like Aya. At the beginning of the pandemic, Aya, what was your response, and what do you think did the community need at that time, or still need? No, it's because it's still ongoing.
Yeah. I resonate so much with what you said, JK, in terms of it's hard to gather people because it's live energy that fuels these community capacity building. Pre-pandemic, my main work was doing this workshop called Dollar Movement, and it's also part of my ACC grant in 2016, 2017 is to really learn pedagogy and other embodied research forms that inform dance as a therapeutic practice. And that's something that I've really, really wanted to focus on and do. But also being in Manila and being a performing artist in Manila, I had to wear different hats. Again, because of, economic reasons. So being a director, being a choreographer, then performing, and then continuing this embodied research that involves making a lot of people from different walks of life dance and move as they are and be who they are, come to an authentic movement. And so, yeah, when the pandemic happened, it was that kind of difficulty, but then at the same time, it afforded me to really slim down and just, okay, so from these hats, like where could I give my offering the most, and where will it be of value? And so the most that I could think of is for Daloy, and we have done this. We have provided platforms online such as At Home with Daloy, which is mainly, we provided a lot of classes that not only dance together, but there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of discussion around mental health and using embodiment or dance as a practice wherein we could just care for each other and be together and hash out what it feels like to be here, or both our fears and what it feels like to be sheltered in or to be abused at home. We also, and again, another thing that we responded to was, the dancers also needing, okay, it feels so weird to not be able to dance, to not have space, to not be seen, to not dance. And so we're like, okay, so what are the immediate concerns of the dancers? Okay, post-pandemic, like, who do we know? Okay, we have internet, but who are our connections? Like, okay, if you're telling us, Aya, that, now we're more connected than ever, but like, who do we know from outside of the Philippines or outside of Manila or different parts of the world or different parts of the Philippines? And so we formed Ugnayan as a platform wherein, okay, let's just come together and collaborate, both, again, the dancing and the discussing, having equal amounts of space, and really acknowledging that we don't have to force our bodies to perform, and neither do we have to force our bodies to dance, because a lot of the dancing bodies are just in shock or even paralyzed and just need, a place wherein they could talk and speak. A part of a system of support that we found ourselves being part of is like Happy Age, which is this community outreach program that is first time in the Philippines that was formed. So again, thanks to the pandemic, thanks to Rosam Prudenciado, who's also a contemporary dance artist, who just said, okay, we just need, even pang groceries of 2,000 pesos for like displaced artists. And dance artists are usually really project-based. And a lot of us like belong to really poor families. So we started being part of that and just, helping one another, the different dance companies, just, okay, let's collate all the sponsors that we know, all the patrons that we know, and let's see what we can come up with and support dancers and then support dance teachers and doing this online. So these are initiatives that we tried to put up, and then balancing that with, okay, if I'm teaching dance as a healing practice, it's so important for me to really also listen to my own mental health and emotional health, and remembering that I cannot give what I don't have. And so it's a lot of that. It's a lot of transitioning from performing a lot to, okay, I'm someone who could hold space and do care work through movement, through embodiment, through movement meditation. And so that's where I've been and where I feel I'm continuing during this time.
Thank you, Aya. This is a good conversation on care and well-being. I mean, at the start of the pandemic, I was managing a festival for new works. And at that time, there's this big debate around the world, no, among performance makers, wherein maybe we don't, maybe we need to stop and not make any performances. But some artists would like to go, 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 and have that energy, and they needed space where they can be doing what they do best, which is performing. And so that's also like that range. There are artists who are in shock, and the care that they needed is actually to have this meditation and this healing support groups. While some artists also the care that they need is to have platforms to continue creating. And so when we say like holding space, it means also like providing space for care, and also a space where we can be at our best, but at the same time, a space where we can build new capacities as we mutate or evolve this transition. But yes, you also talked about collaborating with our friends from other countries, and this is something that that we had as a privilege, because of ACC. We connect to a lot of artists. Mobility is such a very few artists in the Philippines have an opportunity to have this kind of mobility past few years and connect with this big network of artists doing contemporary performance, contemporary work. So, Leeroy, I understand you were also in contact with your with our friends from Southeast Asia, Asia, and America.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I found that this situation that we've been forced to respond to has fast forward our learnings into how to maximize the tech that is available to us. Even though these technologies are available, there is a certain collective reservation from us. We, the Philippines and other third world countries, tend to be left out from conversations about the future, about visions of the future, and that is reflected in our attitudes towards technology as well. So there is some reluctance that we somehow got over with. Also, everyone was forced to tune in to the news online to keep themselves up to date, and match that with the political situation that's been happening in the Philippines, where social media is continually being weaponized to convince the masses of pro-government ideologies, and so there have been a lot of initiatives from the resistance. No, I'm kidding. But to actually, now that we have more time to be online, we've kind of informed ourselves how to use this for our advantage as well, and part of that is the continued exchanges between our collaborators outside of our country. And I've had a very interesting experience where we actually, showed each other our own mini presentations through the Zoom platform. And, it was, I don't think I've ever seen Zoom used in such a way where it became like a live, like a portal to the living room of your collaborator on the other side of the world. And I think, yeah, it's crucial that we maintain these collecting of perspectives, and how to respond to situations, because that's how the social media is being used, how it's being weaponized here by just giving a specific vantage point, by giving a specific perspective to those in power. So it's exposure to as many perspectives as possible is crucial.
It's like a conversation among artists from different geopolitical spaces. Right now, it's happening in Bangkok, for example. A lot of our colleagues, artists, who are at the forefront of the resistance, or defiance against
Mm.
rule, and a lot of them are good friends that we know. Um, and yeah, when we talk about this resistance, it doesn't just mean resistance to the political, no, but also resistance. But everything is political. This is a thing that we will clarify later.
Mm.
Um, are you in the pandemic, the past 6 months, and you've been quoting Arundhati Roy a lot in this conversation, saying that the pandemic is a portal. And I think one of the questions here is that what are we going to leave behind, and what are we going to take with us as to, but definitely a better, better, better future. What are you trying to unlearn? What are you trying to leave behind, given the now?
It is no, it is so interesting for me. Like really, as I look back on the works that I've produced in the last 10 years, my works are really personal, even autobiographical, and they're really. I would even consider them performance rituals for myself. Just a quick say, okay, March, I was able to do a 20-minute dance film here by the beach, and we were really scared of the police. We're really scared of barangay officials, militaries, like seeing us. But then it's almost it's an urge. It's this deep urge to just do it, and so we did it. And it's so interesting for me to actually observe that I remember in my body, using my body as, you know, a means of livelihood, and my body is there to perform. And even as a choreographer, it's always using the body so that you can come up with a beautiful output that, you know, people from big institutions could consider, oh, that's a work of art, or that's really saying something, and could be either, you know, something for an audience. And there's a huge shift again since I've started to really realize and practice what is daloy, or what is getting to a flow state, what is, or how can I put at the forefront, you know, improvisation through dance as this art form on its own, you know, that merits respect and merits a lot of joy, or a way for people to come together. I observed that in the Philippines, there's just much more respect for dance that is choreographed or is set, or wherein you use the body, such as, you know, a clay that you mold in order to be presented. And so March, I did this dance film. It's called Tethering. And and I would say it's my first time to really listen to my body as this thing that has dignity, and this thing that has to pray, and for the first time really feel that it's almost an urge that's bigger than my body, and it's a transpersonal experience of I'm being called by the sea and something a little bit higher. And up to this point, it's something that's hard for me to express. Yes, I do have a rich background in yoga, in qigong, in tai chi, and all these meditative practices, but to actually experience it now, and to be able to really say that what if the future that I want is really people who are not using their bodies for performance sake? What is it like to have bodies in the space wherein they feel authentic and authentically connected to what feels like their center or their core? And that, yes, vis-a-vis that authenticity is accountability to the group or to a space, but a lot of what would it be like to like give platforms, do works, produce works that are not coming out of guilt, or not coming out of competition, or not coming out of we have to prove ourselves, or not coming out of there is a standard raised by society that we have to meet, but instead we are coming out of, again, that primal urge of we're born to create. It's natural for us to create, and through the creations that we do, we are healing each other, and we are emanating or showing that it is possible to, yeah, no longer use this body for capital, and just for us to be human. I i still feel like words leave me as I talk about these experiences that I have, but yeah, I kind of, yeah, I think I'm now in a place wherein I'm veering away, and it's not like mental. It's almost, you know, the back of my head is like, okay, my intuition tells me to veer away from producing, because that's how it felt like in the last 6 years, that I have to produce in order to, win some form of proverbial rat race in the art community. And it's just tiring, and it's so oppressive. And yeah, and so yeah, a part of me sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night and say, you should do more, or this person needs money and we have to send more emails and we have to hold more spaces. Yeah, I guess being exposed to nature the way I am to it now is looking at, there is time, and there is a long game, and there is a new earth that is being rebirthed as much as this old earth is being destroyed. And so there is that. I'm actually really grateful that, this discussion is talking about the post-COVID world, or re-envisioning. Yeah, so thank you. At least it helps me imagine, instead of sometimes I get lost in the present moment, which is also actually could be, pleasurable in the most simple ways. And I'm now really learning from, again, the locals, from new friendships, from it. And it's really hyper local for me. There is this, my body is right here, right now, in this hyper local issues and stuff. And we have very different things happening, even from my world or my part in the online world. And so it feels like two worlds for me at the moment. And it's both, it's exciting, and yeah, everything's up in the air. Even here.
Wi-Fi is a little bit wobbly, but I just hearing Aya talk about how she got tired this practice and how she's shifting her practice. I'm reflecting on my time with the Asian Cultural Council, doing my research in 2018 on performance and civic engagement. And at that time, I think there will come a point in your practice as an artist where you shift from looking at your practice in the position of an art economy to shifting it into looking at it in connection to a broader social ecology in which you're responding to. And I think most artists, or at least speaking from a place of truth, I get a lot of energy from that connection outside outside the theater. But that connection to the streets, to education, to development work, expanding that from performance to performative everyday, performance as healing, and even performance as reckoning. Tama, Leeroy? Right? Leeroy, like reckoning for reckoning for what is happening. Also, some people are wounded. We need to take care of them. Some who have that strength to counter troll farms, right? And sometimes to be the truth farms, to create better narratives. Not all should be the streamlined narratives. How history is being changed, and how we are looking at how we are looking at the present day, and how we are telling our story of the future, or even how we are pre-enacting the future now. So that's where I think artists come in. And so, Lee, you didn't put, you don't, I think like Aya, you're also this kind of artist where for the past 3 years I've been following your work, be it in activism, be it working for galleries, and be it working for various initiatives. You see that interrelatedness and that connectivity. So now that there is this pandemic, what have you been doing, and is there a shift in your practice? And like what I asked Aya, what are you leaving behind, and what do you intend to shift, if there's any?
Well, I mean, you would know, since you and I have been collaborating almost from the start since art school, and and a lot of the things that we've engaged ourselves before as art students or as recent graduates have prepared us. In a way, I mean, for me, I think it's prepared us for situations like these. Like as you said, I love this idea of artistic practice here in the Philippines as a disaster response because it's like disaster 24/7 in the Philippines. So especially as freelancer creatives whose specific practices don't necessarily are being don't necessarily work within a unestablished system for dissemination and economic transactions. And I think we were caught in the middle of a time when it was still in the process of being determined by us, the practitioners. Um, and yeah, I relate to what you said, that art to art kind of exchanges tend to uh, uh, in a way tend to be incestuous, and we seek out um, different ways of thinking to further educate ourselves, to inform our practices, and and this has led me to collaborating with different specialists, to applying my work in urban development, and so yeah, the choice to do public art as an art student was already political in itself, to in a way to establish public spaces, to reclaim public spaces for ourselves, for the people, as creative platforms that benefit the people. And this is what I think we're continuing to do right now. And in a way, this technology that we are privy to and we have access to uh, has done its job of kind of equalizing this the stage for most people. Now you can actually come up with good work and somehow trust that the right network, the right market, or the right audience for you will seek you out, or you will seek them out. And that has been, I think, very significant in producing a diverse range of practices. In the same way that there's a wide range of responses to this pandemic, same as art. I mean, it's no different from creative artistic practices. The range of responses to this situation is just as varied.
Okay, thank you, Leeroy. My connection
It's
is unstable, but I feel committed to.
no, you're fine actually.
Yes. Okay,
You're
we have
fine.
limited time.
You're
All
fine.
right. Thank you. Before we take
You're
questions,
great.
because we gave this big question, right, us to answer, but we still have another space after this talk. So we go to spatial chat so we can dig deeper into this context, and concepts. But before we end, I would like to ask you. So, what is a lot of people keep on asking us artists about this, right? What is your vision of art making in post-COVID world? Yeah, a vision of redirection. There are.
Would you like to go ahead, Aya?
Okay, sige. I think I've heard this in your own terms, JK and Leeroy, but my vision is in the post-COVID world, there'll be less divisiveness. There'll be more spaces wherein different truths could coexist. And there's just, yeah, so that's it. That's my short Miss Universe answer.
World peace. Well, as for myself, it's been said that art is inherently useless, but I think art just needs to catch up with a more efficient and effective way to engage itself towards the community or the people, to kind of harness the inherent effectivity and potential for change of art when working with society. So yeah, it's really, art just needs to open itself up and and be in tune with urgent concerns, with issues that strike at the heart of community and society. Art sometimes just needs to get over itself and work towards something, beyond itself. So yeah.
I've always been thinking about that idea that the performances that I create within communities as rehearsals for revolution, that we are rehearsing a different way of being, a different way of togetherness. It's just that for the past few years and because of the pandemic, I've grown tired of that idea of rehearsing. And so I'm thinking a lot about the post-COVID world, especially.
Here we are.
Thinking about how performance can be direct action and how it could be the mutual aid for us artists and for people. So those are things that I'm thinking a lot about and what shifts we need to create, right? So thank you, Leeroy and Aya. Let's answer some questions in the chat box. I'll just choose some of the questions. In times of crisis or conflict, how do you decide between speaking out and staying silent? Well,
maybe I can answer. Okay, I would say compared to the times before pre-COVID that I've, that some of my works were related to rest back or also going to protests and some of that. Admittedly, nowadays I use my intuition. I use my intuition basically because on a personal level, I've really, really been mentally and psychologically affected by the stuff that I get into. So again, a different perspective is I'm very, very empathetic and I'm highly sensitive. And this is something that I've discovered about myself and that heightened for me much, much more in the past couple of years. And so, yeah, actually it's very selfish and I mostly struggled with guilt the moments that I'm like, okay, I really have to choose the projects that I have to get into and I have to like really be smart where I put my energy. And I would say I use a lot of my intuition, and that kind of decision really has to do with I can't afford to get sick. And especially now, I mean, it's so difficult. Like if I sneeze or it's not even COVID related, it's so scary to be in the hospital, and it's just not practical, both money wise and also the scare or the threat between me and my housemates, me and my neighbors here. And so, and a lot of the inefficiency of the government involves, we really, on a personal level, have to take our health into our own hands. So both we have to be physically healthy, emotionally healthy, mentally healthy. So for many times I've struggled with guilt around not being more involved into activist work. But now I want to trust that everything that I do, even from the simple things that I don't name art or activism, has a ripple effect from the conversations that I engage in, the people I talk to, and what kind of energy I bring into a room. And yeah, so I use my intuition.
Yeah, when do you stay silent and when do you do the good fight, Leeroy?
I think, like I said, we've been rehearsing for the good fight for so long, and in a way we've been trained to be warriors. I mean, given our educational background, we've been conditioned. We were educated in art school run by the government, and in high school and in the university. And part of the mantra was, you have to give back. It's the people that you're indebted to for your education and all that. And somehow that has kind of settled at the back of our minds. And so I've become hyper aware of my capacities and my privilege and my ability to be to be of service to people who are in need of such service. And this awareness that some people can't afford to not fight. Some people who fight on the daily, just going to work here in the Philippines, taking public transportation is in itself a grueling, inhumane challenge. And and just by taking these into consideration, I realized that I have it easy. I have choices. I actually can make choices. I can choose to ignore all this and just succumb to certain systems that will be comfortable for myself. But I guess we're drawn to the good fight. We like the challenge, and this is reflected in the type of art that we do. We go beyond what is comfortable. We tend to unearth and generate alternative experiences for ourselves and for the communities that we serve.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's partly answering the question that asked by our lovely audiences. One question is that express. What would you say that expressing your beliefs through your art can be both a privilege and a responsibility? Yes, I think no. We acknowledge the responsibility. This education. It's good that Leeroy is using the word service. How art is always looked at as in service of people, of community, or even of bodies. We have, let's get some more questions. And if we don't happen to answer your questions, please join us at our post-talk party and spatial chat. We can talk deeper and longer, be together, share space. So let's get one more question. We have a question from Ellen Fisher. How do you reach different communities that might not know of your work? I think I can answer one.
Yeah, JK
now.
can.
Because of the pandemic and that we're still in a remote spaces, you know how digital spaces, there's an illusion that you are more open to the public. It's not. Analytics, it's the AI working that will block you from reaching different communities. So you have to digital communities at least, no? But I think there's a need now to look for this idea of hyperlocality. Your immediate locality, your immediate that is defined sometimes by space or interest, and that's what we did in the pandemic. To just look for who's nearby, so we can speak nearby, and we can respond. And then after taking care of our immediate community, then we expand. But also because we are online, no? For example, the Virgin Lab Festival I was managing, when we put it online, people across the archipelago were able to watch these plays that seldom will reach this much and this wide range of audiences. So I think it's also the intentionality of wanting a wider reach in terms of community, especially online. But I think it's art making is an endless practice of introducing yourself and people. This year I'm supposed to work with different communities from different islands and to stay with them for long durations. That wasn't made possible because of the pandemic. But yeah, what do you think, Leeroy and Aya? Anyone?
Go ahead.
Ano ulit yung tanong?
Not know of your work.
Well, I agree with what you said, that there has to be intentionality to reach more communities. I would say this year the plans were the dance company is going to tour. We're going to tour like full length works, tour within the Philippines and then abroad. And I was really working hard on, okay, let's get the grants, let's get the production team together. And of course, when the pandemic happened, that's all like up in the air and definitely not happening. And so there's a huge transition for me that at first felt so, difficult to face. But then at the same time, yeah, I'm really focusing on gathering people in a space, whether that's in a Zoom room or the immediate local community that I have and the people that I make friends here or meet, and just okay, so this is what we got so far. I'm transitioning from performing as a body to making other people move as they are in the space and feel like they're going to be accepted, whatever is their gender, their body type, whether they claim they dance or not. And then we're going to talk and we're going to be people and then we're going to eat together and we'll make it as accessible as possible. So what is barter exchange, or what can you give or what can you not give? And so for many people or from outsiders, that may look like, oh, okay, so that's like just a workshop that has a different format or way of doing it. But for me, I really feel like I'm transitioning into this kind of work because that's the kind of world that I believe in or would like to subscribe to. Like, how can we all be in a space and feel authentic and accountable for each other and move in ways that are ethical? And so yun. So honestly, yeah, I'm being really hyper local. It's not a priority for me to like reach as many artists as possible or many communities as possible, because I propagate, okay, whoever you are in the space, whether you speak Tagalog or you don't speak Tagalog or you don't even speak at all because you're dealing with so much shame in your body or shame around speaking, like, you matter, your life matters. And you know what? Your life is the art form. That's it. And all of our life matters. So yun, so I'm really being hyper local, I guess. So
I will segue this question to Liz question. She's asking, do you feel a tension between these two developments? On the one hand, greater international connectivity and accessibility as arts from global art centers move online, and on the other, increased attention to the potential and responsibility of artistic practice to address the needs of local communities in crisis. Can these two spheres be bridged? And if so, how? Okay, I'd like to answer first again. I am managing, I'm facilitating, or perhaps I facilitated and currently facilitating a total of 3 different laboratories in different countries. And continuing this conversation with our international partners. While at the same time, on some days when we choose not to sleep, we're also working on the ground, like doing this food kitchens and doing this this works on the ground, the local. I think just to be truthful about it, right? This exchanges with international communities, not just an exchange of this currency of knowledge and at the same time solidarities. In a way, it's also very economic. It helps also sustain the practice and regenerative at that, not just financially. It sustains just because in the Philippines we have very limited resources also to support artists to create work. In this international exchange, at times you are taken care for. So I think this is something that we were lobbying to local institutions to provide support for more artists so that we can do more local work. But nonetheless, I think what's becoming more apparent is that when we talk about exchanges, the currency is not just really economic. It's a currency of care, the currency of idea exchange, and all these things that we're generating and trying to bridge. But also, I for the past 6 months being at the front lines, I was telling this in another talk yesterday that I think I kind of reached my surge capacity. This new term that you're telling that it's time to like step back and let the other artists like do the work and be at the forefront again, and then try to be at the grassroots, try connect again to the ground so that we can have a greater sense of what is happening and bridge the digital and what's the opposite of digital? the
analog. Nintendo, char.
this tension between this development, we have expanded our reach and our collaborative engagements, because all the all the residencies and even the festivals have come online. So yeah, any other thoughts before we go to spatial chat? We're good, friends. We have so many interesting questions, and
Kulang.
Leroy, you've unboxed, wow, unpacked a lot of interesting
Unboxing.
boxing. Spatial chat, as we and we can answer more questions there. We can be more relaxed. Get a glass of whiskey or a bottle of wine, and we can just hang out and talk. You may find us at the spatial chat. Just a warning for everyone: when we go to that space, there'll be like 5 or 10 minutes for us to get really lost. So let's just be patient and let's just be kind. We are posting the post-talk party link here on our comment section. And the next ACC in Dialogue series, ta-da, is happening. It will be hosted by ACC Japan on October 8th with alumni Shirotama Hitsujiya, Daisuke Moto, and Fumi Yokobori. For those who want to continue today's conversation, join us for our post-talk party. See the link here in our chat for the platform Spatial Chat. So see you there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aya. Thank you very much, Leeroy. And may we call
Thank
on
you.
Miss Des Rances from ACC Philippines.
Thank you, JK. Thank you, Leroy. Thank you, Aya. Maraming salamat. You know, time is never enough. I mean, it was your conversation was so engaging, and I hope our friends, our friends who joined in, we had like about 49 all in all in this conversation, and I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. And on behalf of the ACC, again, thank you. Thank you to everyone. Please join us, as JK has said, join us on October 8th again for the next In Dialogue series hosted by Japan. And in a few minutes, let's all jump into our spatial chat to continue the conversation. Maraming salamat po, and be with us again in the
Thank
next
you.
In Dialogue series.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.